For my honors project, I had to research the work of M.C. Escher and then create an art piece based off of it. M.C. Escher was a graphic artist during the early to mid-1900s. There are many common themes in his work, one of which is the use of tessellations. A tessellation is made up of the same image repeated over and over again. This can be seen in Horsemen. Another common theme is transforming foreground and background within the same piece. This can be seen in Sky and Water, where the piece starts off with a black bird in a white background. As the viewer moves down the piece, the black bird becomes less distinct, while the white background begins to take on a form of its own. This transformation continues until the bottom of the page, where the viewer is left staring at a white fish against a black background. Escher also played with perspective, putting multiple perspectives into the same work. In Still Life and Street, we see a table on a balcony overlooking the street below. However, the foreground and background melt into ambiguity as the table itself becomes the street below. While researching Escher's work, I kept thinking of another form of image that also plays tricks on the mind, and that is the stereogram. If you stare at the image in the stereogram properly, then the picture will appear to have a 3D effect. To look at the stereogram properly, you have to try to stare past it. To do this, stare cross-eyed at the two dots at the top of the picture until you see a third dot appear between the two. If done properly, the image should appear to look like this. For this effect to work, the background image must be made up of the same image repeated over and over again at a set distance. If another image is repeated across it at a slightly shorter distance, it will stand out against the background, as is the case with the tigers in this example. I decided that for my final art piece, I would combine a stereogram with elements of Escher's work. The first thing I had to do was test out creating the stereogram. I used one of Escher's tessellations as a background for the test. I took the same section of the tessellation, 140 pixels wide, and repeated it across the page. Then I took another image, and on different rows I placed them at set pixels apart. In the top row, they are set to 140 pixels apart, same as the background. The second row is set at 130 pixels apart, and the bottom row 120 pixels apart. The smaller the space between each image, the more they appear to pop out. Now that I knew how to make the stereogram, I started to create the background image I would use. I decided to start with basic geometric shapes in a row, and like Escher, slowly transform the shapes, in this case from triangle to hexagon. As you can see, by having the shapes just touch each other, the empty space in between takes on a shape of its own. The next thing I did was repeat the pattern to create a full background. After that, I started adding in shapes in the foreground to pop out for the 3D effect. I decided to have 3 different layers. The first would be flat against the background, the second to pop out a little in the midground, and the third to pop out into the foreground. Then I started playing with color and gradients to add to the ambiguity of the background. In the end, I decided to use 2 gradients going in opposite directions. The first gradient was with the geometric shapes going from black to white, and the second was the empty space going from white to black. This added even more ambiguity to the background as the geometric shapes started to fade to the back, while the empty space became more prominent. At the top of the piece, there are upright black triangles against a white background. In the middle, the shapes in the empty space begin to switch in prominence. By the bottom, it appears that there are upside-down black triangles against the white background, even though the black is empty space and the white is the actual triangles.